Good evening, everyone. Today, we're gonna discuss the different principles of evolutionary thoughts. The objectives are to learn Jean-Baptiste Lamarck's theory on evolution change and his principle of use and disuse and inheritance of acquired characteristics. Second one is to describe Charles Darwin's voyage and his observation that led him to write The Origin of Species. Voyage of the Beagle and Organisms in the Galapagos Islands, Darwin's reflection after his voyage, Darwin's use of common knowledge, writing and publication of the origin of species. Have you ever heard the word evolutionary thought before? If not, come join me and let's discuss the different examples of evolutionary thoughts and their principles. But first, let's discuss what is evolutionary thought. Evolutionary thought means refers to the set of ideas and concepts that have been developed over time to explain the process of evolution and the patterns of diversity we observe in the natural world. Evolutionary thought means that it refers to a broad range of ideas and theories that attempt to explain how species change over time and how biodiversity has arisen through natural processes. Let's move on to the next slide, which has evolutionary thought, and he is Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. Jean-Baptiste Lamarck was a French naturalist who lived in the 18th and 19th centuries. He is best known for his theory of evolutionary change, which he presented in his book Philosophie zoologique, published in 1809. Lamarck's theory was very different from the prevailing view of evolution at the time, which was based on the ideas of the English naturalist Charles Darwin. Lamarck's theory can be divided into two principles: the principle of use and disuse. The principle of use and disuse states that organs or structures that are used frequently by an organism become larger and stronger, while those are not used become smaller and weaker. This principle suggests that organisms are able to adapt to their environment by changing the size and shape of their organs and structures. For examples, Lamarck believed that the long necks of the giraffes evolves because they stretch their necks to reach higher leaves and trees, and over time their necks becomes longer as a result of this stretching. That's what we call use and disuse. Next is the inheritance of acquired characteristics. The principles of inheritance of acquired characteristics suggest that characteristics acquired during an organism's lifetime can be passed on to its offspring. For example, if a person develops strong muscles through exercise, Lamarck believes that these traits could be passed on to their children. This principle is also known as Lamarckian inheritance. Lamarck's theory was widely accepted in the early 19th centuries, but it fell out of favor after the publication of Darwin's On the Origin of Species in 1859. Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection provided more scientific and rigorous explanation of how evolution occurs. Darwin argued that the variation that lead to evolutionary change are random and occur through genetic mutations, not through use and disuse of organs or inheritance of acquired characteristics. And let's move on to the next slide, which is Charles Darwin's voyage and his observation that led him to write The Origin of Species. First is Voyage of the Beagle and the Organism of the Galapagos Islands. The voyage of the Beagle, which lasted from 1831 to 1836, was a scientific expedition that aimed to map the coastline of South America and explore other parts of the world. During the voyage, The ship stopped at various locations, including the Galapagos Islands, where Charles Darwin made some of his most important observations. Darwin's reflection after his voyage. Most significant insight was that species were not fixed and unchanging, but rather evolved over time through a process of natural selection. He observed that some individuals within a species were better suited to their environment than others, and those better adapted individuals were more likely to survive and pass on the traits of their offspring. Writing and publication of the origin of species. The main cause of Charles Darwin's writing and publication of the origin of species was his desire to present his theory of evolution by natural selection to the scientific community and the wider public. Darwin had been developing his ideas on evolution for how many years, but it was not until he received a letter from Alfred Russel Wallace, a fellow naturalist, in 1858, that he was prompted to finally publish his work. Wallace had independently arrived at a similar theory of evolution, and his letter spurred Darwin to complete his own book.